to the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Relentless!
With Adam Kifer. Follow your path to success alongside icons and industry leaders in martial arts, fitness, and more.
Let's go.
This is the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Relentless CEO Podcast. I am your host, Adam Kifer, and we are jumping into the Relentless Book Club today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing with you some of my favorite books that I think are essential for every business owner to read. And I tried to go a different direction than all the normal books we usually hear, like Think and Grow Rich and E-Myth and those type of books, because I know all of us have heard those already, and really wanted to pull out some books that maybe you haven't had a chance to read or haven't even heard of that are really going to help take your business to the next level. Now, I have almost like a principle whenever I read a book. When I read a book, I have to implement from the book. So as I go through the book, I'm taking notes, like I'm stopping between chapters and taking notes. And then I'm thinking about what are the things that I can actually put into action once I'm done reading this book. And there's even been times where I've paused reading the book so I could implement what I'd already read before finishing the rest. And I know there's a lot of people out there that like brag about how many hundreds of books they read per year. Cool, but if you don't remember anything you read or you didn't apply anything you read, does it really matter the number of books that you read? For me, I may only read 10 to 20 books a year, but I make it a habit to implement what I am learning from those books, which I would encourage everyone to do. And I hope that all of you guys do that, because that's how you get the most. Applied knowledge is much more important than just knowledge by itself. So we're going to start with one of my favorite books, which is like a surprise pick. And it was a book that I had never heard of before I read it. And it most likely is a book that you guys have never heard of before you read it. But it's called Profiles of Power and Success. We got the image up on the screen somewhere, maybe over here. I don't know. It's around here somewhere. But here's the cool concept of this book, right? So they take 12 of what they deem the most powerful people to ever have lived. And a lot of them are philanthropists, some are business people, but you have everyone on there from like Mother Teresa to Hitler, like to Walt Disney. And it just jumps, it just follows these 12 people, and it goes through and just characterizes different aspects about their life that are all similar. And now I know what you're thinking, like, how are you like Mother Teresa and Hitler? Like, what is similar about them? Well, as you read the book, you start to see that a lot of how they were brought up by their parents, a lot of the how they use their charisma and their influence in different things is how they were able to become such prolific figures in life. And it's really cool too, because you hear a lot about these people that you don't read in other books. Like Walt Disney, for example, is one of the people I mentioned is in this book. And I'm going to read an excerpt from this book, and it's pretty long, but I think you guys would understand why I'm reading this. And we had the opportunity to take our mastermind to actually learn from Disney last year. And I had asked one of the people leading, I guess you can call it the class or the program, about what I read in this book about Walt Disney. And it was interesting because she had said to me, she goes, he has a crazy story and it's super interesting, but those are the things that we try not to focus on when we talk about Walt Disney and his legacy. And I almost think it's a disservice to not focus on these things, because for me, it made me respect a lot more of what Disney went through to actually build this. So let me just go through this with you, and then you'll get the overarching theme of this. But at age 19, Disney and UbiWorks founded Disney Commercial Artists in Kansas City. The firm lasted 1 month, dying from lack of contracts or income. Off to a great start. At age 20, Disney founded Laughograms in Kansas City. His first product was Alice in Wonderland, animated cartoon for Kansas City theater owners. The firm became insolvent due to selling animated shorts for too little money. It was a good learning experience, but Disney went broke before any success could materialize. He skipped town to avoid angry creditors and ended up in Hollywood with his older brother, Roy. And you guys are like, I thought I was having a bad month, year, whatever. Number 3 on here, Disney founded Disney Brothers Studios in Hollywood at age 22. Crazy thing to do at 22. Like, that's unbelievable already. With $500 loan from Uncle Robert and a $285 loan from his brother Roy, with an advance of $2,000 from Margaret Winkler, he produced his first successful cartoon, Charlie Troubles, featuring Oswald the Rabbit. A distributor named Charles Mintz stole Oswald and his animators and attempted to take over Disney Studios. Oh, well, that's cool. Like already a hostile takeover right out of the gate. Disney lost its only cartoon character, which was also its only source of revenue, plus his best animator is broke and just down. He created Mickey Mouse on a train to California. Now, we go to age 27 of Walt Disney. He launched Mickey Mouse in animation called Plain Crazy. It was an overnight sensation in 1927, but then by 1928, he was insolvent again. And then he created his first sound cartoon, Steamboat Willie, which many of you guys know, but he was forced to sell his car to stay in business in order to finance Steamboat Willie. Which fortunately was actually a success for him. Age 29, he made a deal with MGM for distribution of Mickey Mouse cartoons with a man named Pat Powers, who later stole his #1 animator and refused to pay $150,000 out to Disney in royalties. Like, tough life already, man. And then Harry Cohn of Columbia rescued Disney from certain bankruptcy. And then financed a film called Silly Symphonies, which ended up saving the company for now. Age 31, Disney pioneered in Technicolor with flowers and trees cartoons and won his first 2 Oscars. Good. And he then ran out of money and had his second nervous breakdown. He paid his animators with promissory notes and gold tokens. He risked everything on this concept of having color in his animation, couldn't make payroll. Bankruptcy was pretty much inevitable when he began licensing Mickey Mouse for coloring books, t-shirts, watches, and toys, and finally had his first steady stream of income. Now, there's 20 more bullet points to this, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of the things that you start to see, at least in the Disney side of this book, is that Disney had a rough going of running his business. Like, we all see the end result of Disney for the most part, and you can see that obviously he's created a massive brand, a massive customer experience for people that visit the parks, and has this great thing going now. But when you start reading through the journey of what he had to go through, how depressed he was going through it, it makes Walt Disney, in my opinion, much more relatable to the average entrepreneur. Because we have this roller coaster ride of ups and downs when we're running a business. We've all had those moments where we're just like, I hope I can make payroll this time. I remember those in the early days. And we've all just been there before. And being able to see someone at such a high level and you read their story and realize, oh, like I thought what I was going through was tough. What this guy had to go through for years after years after years. The number of times, if you look into it, the number of times that Disney almost went bankrupt is ridiculous. Like, I've never heard of a company almost going bankrupt so many times. But obviously it became a success story. But that's just a preview of some of the things that you're going to learn about the people in this book. I think from an analytical perspective, it is such a good book. It just breaks down their personalities and really what made them powerful and successful at their individual lanes, okay? Now, just disclaimer, I'm not telling you to read this book and try and be like Hitler. What I am saying, though, is there are things you can learn from each one of these individuals on what made them successful in their lane. And I encourage you guys to read it. It is a hard book to find. I think when I looked the other day, there was one copy on Amazon. You might be able to find it on eBay, but I think I had to pay like $80 for the book because it was like the only one I could find, but it was such a good read. All right, next one. 13 fatal errors managers make. This should be required reading not only for anyone that owns a business, but anyone that is a manager or in a management position of any business. Here's what I love about this book, and what I would encourage you guys to do is read this with your leadership team. Okay, so what we did, and I would also encourage this for you, is every week we'd read a chapter, we'd come back, and everyone would give their takeaways on the chapter. Now, to encourage my team to want to read this, there's 13 chapters in this book, and each one is one of the fatal errors that managers make. So I asked my leadership team, I said, I want you guys to just read the contents because it lists all 13 out. What is my biggest fatal error? And I asked them, and it is chapter 10. Fail to train your people. I'm so impatient when it comes to training people, just being honest with you. So we started with that chapter, and I started by taking ownership that like, hey, I am not great at this. I am very impatient when it comes to training. I need to do better. And then my takeaways were all things that I was going to focus on doing better with. And then the next week, our manager, we did her chapter. So her biggest fatal error, and we all discussed it afterwards. And when you're in a leadership role to your team, it's showing that like, hey, I'm taking ownership of my faults. Like I'm taking ownership of what I suck at and being very open with it. I'm not trying to hide it. Okay. And as a result, it helps your team to have a better connection with you because you feel more like a human being to them. Okay. You're not trying to like show up and portray this individual that never makes any mistakes. Like I'll be the first one to say I make mistakes constantly, business mistakes, personal mistakes, all the mistakes. But luckily, for whatever reason, I'm very open and transparent about my mistakes with people because I think it's if people can learn from my mistakes and my errors and not have to actually go through those experiences themselves to gain the knowledge or the learning that I got from it, awesome. It's like a shortcut to life. But this book, I think, is a must-have. It also, I think, helps to create self-awareness within yourself and also managers. Because as you're reading this, if you're just reading it with an open mind, you're like, oh, condone incompetence. You start thinking about like that one employee that you just kept on for too long and you should have let go earlier and they started to become toxic. And it just helps you reflect a lot on what you could have done better in the past with leadership, and then also just to help you avoid errors in the future. So 13 fatal errors managers can make and how you can avoid them. All right, next one. This, I can honestly say, is a book that changed my life. Emotional Intelligence 2.0. If you go in the Wayback Machine and listen to a podcast episode I did with Adam Sedlick of UFC Gyms. He's the CEO of UFC Gyms. And I remember talking to him, and I'm pretty sure it was on the podcast. Maybe it was a conversation we had before we did the podcast. But one of the things I asked him, I said, when you're hiring like your C-level team, which is like your most important hires, I'm like, what is the one thing that you look for when hiring? And he's like, above and beyond is emotional intelligence. He's like, it is the one thing I look at more than anything else. Like, are they someone that can calmly respond to things instead of having emotional reactions to things? Are they able to process their emotions and not keep them bottled up? And to me, I wasn't really very familiar at that time with what emotional intelligence was or meant, or that you could even train yourself to become better at emotional intelligence. And this book was the game changer for me, because when you read this book at the beginning, it has you take an emotional intelligence quiz, and then 6 months later, you go back and retake it. And it's crazy because unlike IQ, EQ, aka emotional intelligence, is actually a metric that you can increase your score in. Okay, just by being more self-aware, by being more aware of your emotions, how to process your emotions, how to deal with your emotions in a positive, healthy way. And I saw mine go up drastically. And I remember this book, it even breaks down like the financials behind emotional intelligence, that one EQ point is typically averaged to $1,300 a year increase in salary, which means 20 EQ points. You're setting yourself up for a pretty good track record of success just by working on your emotional intelligence. I think for young people, this book is even more important. If you're anything like me as a teenager, I was a highly emotional teenager. If I had known what emotional intelligence was in my teenage years, I would have gotten a lot less arguments with my parents, would have just been had a earlier head start in being successful in life, is what I would say. But this is a book I always recommend for school owners. I think to me, it is the one book that helped me become a better leader almost immediately. It helped me become more empathetic immediately upon reading this book and putting myself in other people's shoes. And my ask for you guys is, when you go through this, to be completely honest with yourself about what you are good at and what you're not good at. When you do the quiz, be completely honest and vulnerable with what you're doing. Because like, even when I was going through this, I know I had employees back in the day that were like you lack empathy. And I was just like, oh, they're just being whiny or whatever. But when I read through this book and went through the quiz, I was like, you know what, maybe I do lack empathy. Maybe I'm too hard-nosed at times, and I don't really put myself in the shoes of the other person or put myself in what they're going through. And this book really helped to open me up more to that as well, to be a more empathetic individual. All right, the opposite of empathy is Tim Grover winning. Good segue there. This is like, fuck your excuses, get your shit together and kick ass type of book. If you need like just a kick in the ass to get your mindset right, to stop giving yourself excuses, to start making progress on your goals, this is... all right, I loved the book Relentless by Tim Grover, so much so that we named our company name was inspired by Tim Grover's book Relentless. We got him on the podcast. We got him to speak at our event. I just like that was a dream. But then Winning came out, And I was like, well, I'm never going to like a book more than I like Relentless. And then I read Winning, and I was like, how did he do it? Like, how did he write a better book than Relentless? This is the first book I ever listened to while I worked out. Like, I always made fun of people that listen to audiobooks while they're in the gym. This book, though, is like the perfect book to listen to at the gym, because you're like doing push-ups and you want to quit, and you're hearing Tim Grover saying, winning doesn't care if you're tired. Winning doesn't care about your feelings. And you're like, you start powering through. Like, mindset and getting away from a victim mentality, getting away from blaming other people. This book is like the best. The audiobook is freaking amazing, because you got Tim Grover giving, Tim and Sherry are giving excerpts in between chapters on extra stories that you don't hear about in the written version of the book. I would 100% make this required reading for yourself. This is like mental toughness 101 in this book. Like, if you're having trouble giving up when things get hard, if you're having trouble not finishing projects because you get stuck and then you put them on hold and you procrastinate, like, make Relentless your best friend. No, I mean, make them both your best friend. They're both great books, but make Winning your best friend. I won't go too much more into it, but there's some great Kobe Bryant. There's a lot more Kobe focused than Relentless, where Relentless is pretty much all Jordan focused, in my opinion, with some other stories thrown in there. But man, there was just some great references of the mindset you need to have in order to win in life. It talks about work-life balance. There's so much good stuff in there. It's gold across the entire book. All right. You guys have heard me talk about this man many times. It's funny. The first quote on the back promoting this book says, required reading for anyone in business. I would agree with that. Ogilvy is like my homie. Like, if I could go get a beer with one business person, it would be, I'd bring Ogilvy back to life and go get a beer with him so I could pick his brain. A lot of people look at this and they think it's going to be like a memoir, or they think it's going to be like just a straight up marketing book. To me, this is like a philosophic book more than anything. You learn about his philosophy and his core values a lot in this, his core values for his company, his rules for his company. Ogilvy probably wrote, just like on his own, more than anyone I've ever heard about. Like, wrote letters to his staff consistently, wrote memos that he would send out, would just write to be creative and to brainstorm. And I think as a result of doing all of that deep introspection, he knew himself probably better than a majority of business owners on the planet. And the rules and things that he crafted for his business are still genius for today. God, there's so many great things. It goes through like his whole pretty much life of how he got to where he was. But my favorite part of this book is really his list of rules that he has for himself, and his list of his rules for copywriting, his list of rules for having a good culture, for running a business. If you even just got this book just to read the list and skip the rest, it would still be invaluable information. Remember, we have an entire podcast episode that I did on this book, and how we can take what I learned from this book and apply it in the martial arts and fitness industry. So if you just want to go listen to that podcast and not read the book, at least you're getting some of that information. But Confessions of an Advertising Man by Ogilvy is such a good book. All right, next. Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Dan Martell was on the podcast as well. You can go back and listen to that episode. I could tell that Dan Martell is a systems guy the moment I opened this book, because everything has like a step 1, a step 2, a step 3. Here's a spreadsheet to go with this and organize this. Here's a graph to help you understand this. Like, it was put in such a easy to understand method of buying back your time that I'm like, this is a book that was written well for me. And everything is formulaic in this. Like, he has a calculation called the buyback rate calculation in this book that he teaches to determine, like, hey, how much, what should my dollar per hour be for myself? How do I actually go about investing money and ensure that I'm getting time back and still moving forward on things? There's a chapter here called Clone Yourself, which I think I've heard every business owner on the planet at one time say, man, I just wish I could clone myself. But it is not necessarily about cloning yourself. What it is, the the whole thing is about delegation, essentially, that chapter, and how to be more efficient with your time. And like one of the things that's super simple in there that I still use daily is his email inbox sorting. Like, if we think about the number of emails we get on a daily basis as business owners, it's pretty crazy. We just brought on a new amazing assistant for myself, and like she saw my inbox the first time, I think was pretty overwhelmed because between assistants, I probably went like 2 months, 3 months without sorting my own inbox, because that's why I have an assistant. But going through and doing that method kept us both on the same pages, made it really easy to organize. And now I just go in, and the emails that are starred are the ones I pay attention to, and the rest I know aren't important or don't need to be answered by me. And there's formulas and systems. Like, this is almost a book for SOPs for how to manage time better, save time, manage your focus, manage your efficiency. I've read this twice. I read it, the ebook version right before my podcast with Dan, and then have read this, have listened to the audiobook. How could you not buy a book called Buy Back Your Time? Like, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for more time. We're always wanting to be more efficient with what we have. And I think it also goes back to Tim Grover's quote in his book that, like, if you keep telling yourself you don't have time, it's not that you don't have time, it's you don't know how to manage your focus. And that's why it feels like you have no time. So anything that you can get time back on that teaches you ways to be more efficient with that, I think you should always read. And the reason is, like, we only have a certain extent of time on this planet, and why wouldn't we want to maximize that time so we can do the stuff that we love and not have to just focus it completely on work? All right, last one. This is not a traditional book. This is a planner. That's funny. I've used, I feel like, every planner out there over the last 10 years. Adam, you're still using a paper planner? Shut up. Yes, I am. But the reason is this specific planner I keep coming back to. I've tried to go away from it, go electronic, and I always come back to it. It's Brendan Bouchard's high performance planner, which it's hard to see on the cover, so I won't even put it there. But the thing I love about this book is not just like, yes, it's a planner where you plan out your day, you plan out your month, all that stuff, cool, whatever. But it's more than that. And it's the daily sheets are my absolute favorite in this. Starts off just to give you guys a little preview of this, the top, it says, what's today's message to myself? You know what I put yesterday? Fuck your feelings. Because I was like getting my feelings yesterday. So that was my message to myself yesterday. And then what my favorite thing on this is, you have your morning mindset and you have your evening prompts that also will help you with journaling. If you're trying to get into journaling, these prompts are a great way to do that. And then there's a daily scorecard, your daily habit scorecard at the end of each day that you just do a self-assessment of. And for me, I do self-assessments pretty much at the end of every night, regardless, even when I wasn't using this. But this specifically helps me to quantify that self-assessment. So I can score myself and actually compare the score from the previous day or the previous week. But just to give you an idea, some of the prompts on here for like morning mindset, one thing I can get excited about today, if one word could describe the kind of person I want to be today, that word is blank. And here's why I choose it. Someone who needs me on my A game today is blank. A situation that might stress me out or trip me up today could be what? So basically what we're doing is we're really setting expectations for how we're going to show up as a leader, who we're going to show up for, and pretty much begin ourselves in the mindset that, hey, expect some crap to go wrong today. Expect some things to happen that are outside of your control, but how are you going to show up and respond to those things as a result? And then it also has task organization on here. So like, you're going to write down top 3 goals or priorities for the day, tasks that absolutely must be done today. And then you have your end of day journal, which is like something I really appreciated from today, a situation or task that I handled well today, something I realized or learned today. I could have made today even better if something that could have helped me feel more connected to others today would have been what? If I was my own high performance coach, I would tell myself this statement about today. So here's the funny thing. Like, I had trouble finding a planner for a long time, so much so that I was ready to make my own planner for martial arts school owners and fitness studio owners that was just ways to get you guys in the right mindset for your day, to kick the day's ass and just really feel like you're making more momentum and progress ever than before. And the problem is I couldn't think of a way to do it better than this one. So I was like, I'll just use this one. We don't need that. So if you guys are looking for something to help create consistency and habits in your life, Brendon Burchard's High Performance Planner to me is the way to go. Especially if you start doing this daily, it just gives you a better outlook on the day, helps you to really learn from any mistakes you made in the day. And also, like, the one thing that we all suck at as entrepreneurs is doing this once in a while. And just like giving yourself a pat on the back for the things that you did well during the day and the great accomplishments and the good moments you had in your day. And it just helps to put everything in perspective. So thank you, Brendon Burchard, for putting this together. Boom. Shorter episode today, but we hope you guys got some value. We'll put links to these books. Hopefully we can find links to all of them. The only one we may not be able to find a link to is the Profiles of Power and Success, because again, I don't think it's printed anymore. I think the only copies circulating out there are ones that were from a previous print run. So that one you may have to Google and like really hunt down, but the rest we'll put links up so you guys can go and purchase them if you feel like it would be a value of you. And then also, if you're watching this, and I know there's some books that are essential for business owners that we didn't even cover today. There's hundreds of them, but drop some of your favorite books in the comments. Share those with each other, because maybe someone's watching this and they already have all this. They've gone through all of this. Your suggestions in the comments could give them some new reading material to push them in a different direction. And as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.
We're unstoppable. To the top, we about to go. That CEO, I need to know the impact we about to grow. Competition comical. Straight A1, we on the road. Money focus for the goal. Tell them what they need to know. We unstoppable.